James, we all know the style of Donald Trump's social media, don't we?
Yeah, short, to the point, and involving many capital letters.
Yeah, so I thought I'd do a little test, and I texted my wife in the style of Donald Trump. I will be home today at about capital letters 7 o'clock. Sad. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Mark Stone, Sky News correspondent. Do you know what her reply was?
Tell me.
What the are you talking about?
I did the same. And my wife's reply, just remember you're the vice president in this house.
Very good. I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews.
It's Wednesday, the 25th of June, day 156 of Trump's second term. And on Trump 100 today, a fragile ceasefire in the Middle East appears to be holding as Donald Trump lashes out at Israel with the F-bomb.
On the very day he got the love bomb, Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, sent a Dear Donald text message that was F for effusive. I swear you'll cringe when you hear it. Where else did Donald Trump show us the statement of true love on Truth Social? Where else?
James, a ceasefire does now appear to be holding between Iran and Israel, but we still don't know the terms of the deal or what concessions either side might have made. There were missile exchanges between the two countries beyond the ceasefire deadline, and that meant that Donald Trump, the peace broker president, as he likes to see himself, he woke up not happy. He was thunderface as he left the White House before 7 a.m. this morning to head to the NATO summit, and he had this to say.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Industrial language from the commander-in-chief, more street than statesman, but that won't worry Donald Trump. He was F for furious when he woke the morning after the ceasefire before. That was the rant, Mark, as he left the White House for this NATO summit. He wanted a line drawn, didn't he, under Israel, Iran before making the trip, and he was angry with both. Furious, particularly with Israel. He's aware of the risks to him, I think, of the appearance of an ally that has reeled him into this fight and wasn't letting go. It leans into doubts around Trump's influence over Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. If this process is heading towards nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran, Trump, he doesn't need questions over the power balance in that Israeli relationship. Tehran needs to believe that Trump can tighten the leash on Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, after that explosive language on the South Lawn at the White House, Trump boarded Marine One, the helicopter. He sent a couple of social media posts effectively telling Israel to back off. Then he got onto Air Force One and he called Benjamin Netanyahu. And he said afterwards to the traveling media that he had credited Bibi for backing off from further retaliation on Iran. We heard from a US official that Trump told Netanyahu not to expect further American offensive military action. The Israelis shortly after announced that their operation was over.
Yeah, Netanyahu gave a televised address to the Israeli people claiming historic victory over Iran. A military chief of his said the focus now shifts back to Gaza and dismantling Hamas.
I don't think it ever shifted away from Gaza, to be honest.
Oh, true indeed. Meanwhile, the Iranians, they're saying they're prepared to sit down and talk, but on the condition that all the hostilities against their country are stopped.
Yeah, quite an extraordinary 24, 36 hours, wasn't it? It was hard to keep up. I'm glad yesterday's episode kind of stood up to the fast-moving events, just about
straining at the leash.
just about did. But through the course of the day, I've had conversations with numerous different diplomats, officials whose job it is to explain to their governments back home what's going on, what is Trump thinking, what is his plan. I reckon they've got as tough a job as we do to analyse and to read the president. Anyway, bewilderment was one word that a few of them used. Another, to reflect on the past 24 hours, was inconclusive, and I think that's key. There are different ways to look at what's happened over the past few days. Trump got a result. He got a win. That's true. He forced Israel and Iran to back down. And I think that was a reflection of his clout. He always likes high stakes games, doesn't he? He's unconventional, yes. He's full of jeopardy, of course. But very often, a lot of what he does is inconclusive. It's about the quick fix. And in the context of Iran, the Iran problem is far from over. But actually, take a step back, try and get some perspective. It's kind of hard to do that in this frenetic time when one story becomes another in the space of a day. But with perspective, what has he actually achieved over the past 12 days? I mean, the issue of Iran's nuclear capabilities totally obliterated, he said on Saturday night. True? Well, maybe not.
Yeah, Mark, there's been some reporting throughout today on an early Pentagon assessment of the damage to Iran's nuclear program. And listen to this, a quote from a Defense Department source to NBC News. "We were assuming that the damage was going to be much more significant than this assessment is finding." That's from one of three sources. "This assessment is already finding that these core pieces are still intact. That's a bad sign for the overall program." So that's sources from the Defense Intelligence Agency saying that these US airstrikes at the weekend on Iranian nuclear sites were not as effective as Donald Trump is claiming, and that they only set the Iranian nuclear program back by 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, battle damage assessments, BDAs as they call them. There's an acronym for everything in the military. They take a long time to be close to conclusive. But there are key questions. Were the sites really obliterated? Well, these initial assessments would suggest not. Were the centrifuges moved? Perhaps, we don't know. And critically, what about the enriched uranium? Was that moved? We just don't know. But Trump's press secretary, she is doubling down.
Yeah, as ever, Mark. Caroline Levitt, she dismissed the assessment as flat out wrong, said in a statement that the leak from an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community, as she put it, is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit brave fighter pilots. Everybody knows what happens, she says, when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets. Total obliteration. We all know that, don't we? We've all seen it.
Yeah, of course we have.
Interestingly, Mark, our colleague Yalda Hakim, she spoke to General David Petraeus about this, retired general, no fan of Trump, and a man who's as senior as it gets. He served for 37 years in the US Army. He was a key commander in Iraq and Afghanistan, director of the CIA from 2011 to 2012. He said it's simply too early to tell the extent of the damage that's been done.
Well, the truth is that it's just too soon, and those who are leaking should know that it takes a long time to do the battle damage assessment. And those who have actually pushed back in very conclusive ways also probably should await for the full results. This is a very painstaking process. It's an effort by the overall intelligence community, not just Defense Intelligence Agency. In fact, the CIA would be the lead in this effort. To mine all sources of intelligence, imagery, intelligence of all types, signals, cyber, even open source intelligence. Everyone is a journalist who has a smartphone and can record in his or her hand. So again, this is going to take a while. The truth is that there has been undoubtedly enormous damage done to the Iranian nuclear program. I would suspect it's been set back years at the least, but let's wait and see.
Donald Trump himself, he spoke to reporters on Air Force One on his way to the Netherlands. He was asked several times whether Iran has made a commitment on uranium enrichment. He didn't give a direct answer. What there was from him was reassurance for both sides, Iran and Israel, during this press gaggle. Israel, they will have liked the sound of Iran's not going to have a nuclear weapon. It's the last thing on their mind right now. That's what Trump said. Tehran, well, they would have turned up the sound when he said He didn't want to see regime change, said it would lead to chaos. Regime change, Mark. It's so last week.
Yeah. You know, for me, this whole episode has kind of been playbook Trump. It's reminiscent in a way of Trump's style on other issues like tariffs. He inserts himself into the moment. He elevates a crisis. He brings everyone to the brink. And then, because he does have power and leverage, he diffuses it all again. He claims a win. He pumps his chest. He projects power. As I say, we can't take away from Trump the fact that he did stop all this. He stopped a war, albeit maybe temporarily. He certainly didn't solve the underlying problems. But stopping the war, calling these two leaders, getting them to come to heel, that is a projection of power. But, you know, if with the tariff issue, he simply returned countries to the place where they were before he became president, he is slowly doing that. Well, then I think with the Iran crisis, you could argue that he's actually made matters worse than they were before, because it's probable that Iran will no longer comply with the nuclear inspectors, who may well be kicked out soon. And the principal focus now of the Iranian regime is now more than ever survival. And I'm sure they will attach themselves to China and to Russia tighter than they ever have done before. There is, of course, though, James, another view to all this, and I think it's worth considering. It was articulated very well, because he does articulate himself well, by J.D. Vance, the vice president. He said on social media, of course, he said, we're seeing a foreign policy doctrine develop that will change the country and the world for the better. Number one, he said, clearly define an American interest. Number two, negotiate aggressively to achieve that interest. Number three, use overwhelming force if necessary. It turns out, he said, you can do just what you said you would do. No mission creep, no protracted, ill-defined nation-building BS. Just very proud of the president and the whole team this morning. James, discuss.
You know, Mark, I'm not saying he's wrong, J.D. Vance, but for me, that reads like a 12-year-old schoolboy. Turns out, if you punch a small kid on the nose, he'll give you his dinner money. Who knew? You know, sure, he'll give you his dinner money this week. And that's where we are this week. Next week, that same kid will be working out self-preservation strategies to make sure he's the one who doesn't suffer and hang the consequences for anyone who does. And you have to hope he's not been hiding 400 kilos of enriched uranium in his school bag. You know, which is the difficulty with the America First strategy. It loses America friends, and it creates enemies with less to lose. And you're talking about alliances with China and so on. That's where Iran are looking now.
100%.
So, you know, Vance, he talks about nation-building BS. That BS has enabled many of us to sleep safe in our beds for long enough. Time will be the judge of how Trump's America does business, and, you know, whether that does the same in the long term.
Now, Donald, I nearly called you. Oh, God, we've had it. I nearly called you Donald. There we go.
I've been called worse. But listen, we're going to talk NATO summit, and we're going to disagree on something, yeah?
Well, we did disagree in the office earlier, so let's see if we've if we've made up. But you're right, NATO. Trump is there. He's gone to The Hague. He had dinner overnight with European leaders, hosted by the King and Queen of the Netherlands. I imagine he loved that. He loves a king, and I'm sure they pulled out all the stops. Of course, we expect Trump to press the Europeans on their defence spending, and this meeting will unfold in the shadow of this extraordinary 12-day war, which has left leaders, as I said, somewhat bewildered. But they are absolutely, I think, of the view that this is a man that has ways of changing everything, positively or otherwise, precisely because he is not like any president in modern history.
Now, Mr. Stone, dear Mark, guess what I'm about to read you?
I think you're going to read me a love letter from Mark Rutte to Donald Trump.
The very one, a love letter as penned by the NATO Secretary General. This wasn't written on parchment. It might as well have been. You know, it's as loved up as it gets in the realm of international diplomacy. Call it Mark Loves Donald. Mark Rutte, that is, of course. It goes like this. Cue the music. Mr. President, dear Donald, congratulations and thank you for your decisive action in Iran. That was truly extraordinary. Something no one else dared to do. It makes us all safer. You're flying into another big success in The Hague this evening. It was not easy, but we've got them all signed on to 5%. That's on defence spending. Donald, you've driven us to a really, really important moment for America and Europe and the world. you will achieve something no, capitals, American president, in decades could get done. Europe is going to pay in a big way, capitals again, as they should, and it will be your win. Safe travels and see you at His Majesty's dinner. Mark Rutte. Mark Stone. There stands a man waiting for the Donald as he swaggers into the NATO summit, giving it, peacemaker, deal maker, king of America, you feel me? The thing is, and this is where we differ, did Mark Rutte know that his message was going to be made public when he sent it? I mean, it was. Donald Trump put it straight onto Truth Social a minute after it was received. I mean, flattery is one thing. Privately, this kind, to me, feels like humiliation publicly.
Yeah, because I think he did know. I think someone of his experience, and he was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands for many years, I think any experienced politician knows that whatever they send to Donald Trump, it is likely to be leaked, and they need to remember that when they put anything down on paper. So I think he knew. You don't.
He would have known there was a risk. It's Donald Trump, after all. And privately, a US president should feel welcome. So privately, it can be as fawning as he wants it to be. But, to be seen to bend the knee, I think it diminishes Rutte, who is a proud man, ambitious politician. I think he's diminished. And I think NATO actually is.
Well, I was about
diminished.
to say exactly
the day the music died for many people.
Yeah, but the NATO was already diminished the moment that Trump became president again, and I think that's the position they're in.
It.
I agree that he would have preferred it wasn't leaked, but I think he wrote it in the full knowledge that it may well have been leaked, and I think he also wrote it having consulted with other leaders in NATO. I think the fact is NATO needs a successful summit. Europe needs America, and that requires sycophancy. That's where we are now. They know that Donald Trump responds very well to being flattered. They've all concluded that sort of tone is the way to draw this consequential president in. And my goodness, they need him right now for NATO. They need him right now for Ukraine.
Yeah, sad, sycophantic place to be. I tell you who wouldn't have appreciated the gushing sentiment from Mark Rutte is President Zelensky.
Well, he right now he won't, but he might if it actually works out well for him.
I wonder. He goes to NATO. He goes to that NATO gathering in The Hague. He looks around the table, and he is looking for evidence of power among friends. He's looking to see where power has shifted, the extent to which it has shifted. To hear the Secretary General welt himself and his organisation to Donald Trump in such a fawning, cringeworthy, effusive way. I think the question now is to what extent is NATO welded to Donald Trump's agenda? Because, A, that's uncertain. In fact, the one certainty in that, in Zelensky's eyes, is that he's looking at a US president leaning towards Vladimir Putin. He needs NATO allies to steer Donald Trump away from Moscow. And he's not reading that in that message from Mark Rutte.
Yeah, and actually on that point, Trump's remarks about Article 5 on Air Force One on his way to the summit, they will be very, very uneasy listening for all of the rest of NATO. Article 5, of course, that principle of collective defense, an attack on one member is considered as an attack on all members. Trump, though, when asked about it, said that he is committed. He was asked if he's committed to Article 5. His response was, I'm committed to saving lives. That's a little different.
Yeah, said there were numerous definitions of Article 5, didn't
Yeah.
he? But didn't quite specify what his chosen definition was.
He said that he will outline what his definition is at the day ahead in The Hague. So we will have much more on that on tomorrow's episode. I think it promises to be a very consequential summit indeed.
And that is all we've got time for today. If you want to get in touch with us, please do. You can email us at trump100@sky.uk.
Send us your questions. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Leave us a comment or review there too. And we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.